From Tally to Cali,
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more corner pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi.
And Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up, everybody? It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Coming up on today's show, sparring over the schedule and the polls, and this rush defense. Is it special? Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. It's in Tallahassee, Florida, 2475 Appalachia Parkway. Weekday lunch specials go from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., but on Tuesdays, it goes all day, all night long. Tacos, soft shell, hard shell, beef or chicken, your choice, all night long over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, leading you into trivia night at 7 p.m. sharp. Win money, win bragging rights, self-worth, self-value, self-esteem, all these things boosted with a strong showing amongst the great minds that attend trivia night over at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminoles sports source. Hit the thumbs up if you're listening to us on YouTube, please. Subscribe as well. Welcome back, everybody. Big show yesterday, Corey. Big ratings. Not that it kind of tapered off last week, which was a little bit odd, like going into the Clemson game. But everybody's back, though. Yeah, at least everybody came back on Monday. So subscribe, download the podcast. You don't have to listen to it. Just get us the numbers, everybody. Get us those numbers. Corey Clark, how are you, man?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Hey, you know what? Thanks for asking, Aslan. How are you? How are you doing? How's Tinder? You crushing it?
Yeah, all right. Just doing what I got to do to survive out there on the streets. It's hard out here. It's hard out here. But surviving and advancing, things of that nature. How was your dinner on Monday night?
It was good. Stephanie made red beans and rice for Brady and I. It was piping hot. She got mad at Brady because he didn't come down immediately to eat the meal. Meanwhile, when he did come down to eat it, it almost burned his tongue off because it was so hot. But that's fine. That's neither here nor there. She's one of those people that she bakes cookies and then puts them on and says they're ready, and then people burn their faces off. But it was very good. She did a great job. Sure. Yeah, red beans and rice, old family recipe. The sausage, though, we wanted it to be registers, but they don't have registers up here, so it's a cheap knockoff. So not quite as good, but still. The Clark boys never complain when a homemade meal is done in this house because that never happens.
Oh, absolutely.
That never happens. So we needed a homemade meal is right up our alley.
All right. I was about to say, I'm glad you had some protein in there when you're like, it's just red. I'm like, you guys just ate beans and rice? Like, what's going on?
Oh, no. There's ham. There's sausage. It's good stuff, man.
Okay. Good stuff over on Warchant.com. Whenever Corey writes a column, he does it often. You should be a subscriber. You can read all of it. He speaks well. His writing, though, exceptional.
Next level. Next level. Yeah.
So I guess we can almost characterize this show as almost like 2-day news. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about here. But let's spar a little bit, Corey. I'm going to try to play a little bit devil's advocate here, but not that you're not that you're panicking. I don't even want to say you're complaining. I just think you're being a little bit critical. I think those are kind of two different verbs, adjectives, adverbs, whatever. Not good at grammar. But the fact that Florida State is fifth now in both polls, like they dropped after beating a team that's quite fairly talented. That's probably putting it conservatively, but a team that's done well in that venue. To see them drop, again, we're not panicking or anything, but it's not a good sign, man. It's not. I don't want to panic, but it's not a good sign.
Yeah, and that was kind of the point of the column I wrote is that, look, we all understand that none of it matters in late September. The polls that matter at the middle of December, not now. But what worries me a little bit is that, and I've lived through this, it was 9 years ago, which is about the last time Florida State was relevant in December, is that I get that people would look with a jaundiced eye over a 2-point win at Boston College because that was a gross performance there in the final 20 minutes of game time. But I just for the life of me can't. I wrote it in the column, like, Aslan, when do you think the last time it is that a team beat Clemson and fell in the rankings?
Yeah.
That does not happen. Winning at Clemson, that team was 64-2 in its last 66 games in that venue. The losses were, in 2016, a 1-point loss to Pittsburgh. They ended up winning the national championship anyway. Clemson, not Pittsburgh. And then last year, the 1-point loss to South Carolina. Those are the only 2 losses that team has had there since Jameis. That team never loses in that building. and they just lost. When I thought they played pretty well, and I think they're a good team. So it concerns me that, okay, I see what's happening here. Florida State, everybody was excited about the win over LSU. Now, okay, well, that was 3 weeks ago. They lost. They barely beat Boston College. They barely beat Clemson. Let's start pushing them down. And then how do they gain? What I'm concerned about is, look, the likelihood is Florida State's probably not going undefeated, right? It's hard to do that. It's just hard to do that. I hope they do. I've said it. I think they're going to be favored in every game they play the rest of the way. But it is hard in modern football to go undefeated. So they'll have a loss. And how penalized are they going to be for that loss? Because they won't be able to make up for it with wins in this conference. I don't think. Like, you beat Duke at home. Great, you beat Duke. You're supposed to beat Duke. They have a bunch of 2-stars on their team. You beat Miami at home. Great, you were at home, and you beat them by 42 points last year. Oh, you beat so-and-so in the championship. That's what, like, you don't get the benefit of having a big win. It's just these almost losses start to feel like they count as losses. And I was just bumfuzzled, when you really think about it. And I'm not as mad as that column probably came off, but I can't fathom we're in a scenario now where you beat Clemson at Clemson and you're being leapfrogged by other teams. Because look at the whole resume, right, Aslan? Like, who has a better resume that's undefeated than Florida State? I'm not asking who looked better on Saturday, September 23rd. I'm asking who has a better resume. Nobody. And yet they keep falling, which is a little concerning.
Well, the way I see it is, I think the fact of the matter was maybe they're looking at it as Clemson was a 30-yard field goal away from winning that game, which they missed it. It's a real thing. Yep. Now, who's to say the butterfly effect, if Florida State does go down, they seem to embrace adversity. Maybe they drive down the field and score a touchdown and don't even have to go to overtime. But, that kind of stands. Georgia's based on reputation, which, listen, man, we lived through it 9 years ago. We were defending national champions. And we didn't get respect, so it feels kind of weird criticizing Georgia being ahead of us and maybe not looking all that great.
No, it's just like I get what you're saying there, but you wouldn't look at Georgia, what they've done through 4 weeks, and say absolutely they're the best team in the country.
Correct, but it's based off their reputation and what they've done the last 5 years versus what Florida State's done the last 5 years. Same thing with Michigan. Michigan finally played a pretty decent team in Rutgers, and they absolutely dismantled them.
But then what about Texas?
Well, the thing I think with Texas is the Bama win still is going to be strong.
I didn't bring this up in the column, but do you think that Bama win is that much more impressive than winning at Clemson? It seems like a very similar win. The only difference was one was played at noon and one was played at night. Yeah. Clemson has a very good defense too, and that was a close game in the fourth quarter. Bama scored more on you than they did South Florida. I'm talking about if you're a Texas fan. Yeah. Like, that Alabama team is a little bit of a struggle. It's not great right now, just like Clemson isn't. And they're very similar programs, but Texas didn't go down for barely beating Alabama. They vaulted to the moon. And when Alabama looked like horse blank the next week at South Florida and only had a 7-6 lead at halftime on Saturday against Ole Miss at home, Texas wasn't being then penalized for, I guess that Alabama win's not as great as we thought. But somehow the Clemson win isn't all that. And I should say this. I do want to say this because, again, I'm not that upset about it. It does all work out in the end. Texas looked better against Alabama offensively than Florida State did against Clemson.
Okay.
I think Texas it felt like Texas kind of controlled that game.
Yeah.
Florida State didn't control the Clemson game. Some people might say they were fortunate to win, whatever. But so I get why you would look at the eye test, quote unquote, and say, well, man, Texas was kind of in control of that game. Texas was a better team than Alabama. Mm-hmm. I don't know that you'd watch that Florida State and Clemson game and say Florida State is absolutely a better team than Clemson. But wins used to matter. Yeah. And that win over LSU is still really impressive. And then winning at a place that nobody wins ever should be held, I think, in more higher esteem than getting jumped again. Yeah. Like, Clemson is not Boston College. And I could understand watching that team play against Boston College and go, all right, maybe they're not as good as we thought. Winning a game at Clemson deserves a lot more respect than Florida State got, just in my opinion.
That's fair. I think retroactively losing juice on a win is hard unless that team continues to lose and lose poorly. So that Texas win over Alabama, I get your point. Alabama is clearly not as good as everyone thought they were going to the season, but they're still winning football games. Now let them mess around and lose 2 or 3 more games. I think at that point, then we're in November, right? Then these polls obviously really matter. At that point, I think maybe Texas would lose benefit of the doubt. But as long as Alabama keeps winning, as long as LSU keeps winning too, which I think that's low-key probably the second favorite team of any Florida State fan this year, right?
Yeah.
You need to root for Florida State obviously to win, and you need to root for LSU to win.
I think people will start rooting for Clemson too.
That wouldn't be a bad idea either. I do wonder a lot. People were real big fans of Ira's 3-2-1, which why wouldn't you be a big fan of it? He was kind of pointing out the fact that Clemson team is probably better than we're giving them credit for, and someone was saying that they'll probably end up going 10-2. I don't know about that.
I don't think that.
Yeah,
I think I even wrote in my column. They strike me as a 9-3 team. They are. Guys,
on the high end, yeah.
But
they got to go at NC State. They got to play Notre Dame. They got to play Miami. They got to play North Carolina.
Yeah, they have a tough schedule.
Yeah.
So you're right. They might be a 7 or 8 win team, but I guess if if they're if you weren't there like we were there, you and I were there. I mean, you guys watched it on TV, you saw it, but that's such a tough place to play, and they did play well. And their front seven is their whole defense is exceptional. And I thought their quarterback played well. Their quarterback is the reason they lost the game against Duke. Clearly.
Yeah.
It was some ridiculous turnovers, and he just wasn't good. He's better now. The Cade Klubnik that Duke faced isn't the same guy that Florida State just faced. He is different. Charleston Southern, whatever you did, he got some confidence there. He was a good football player in that game. And I just think at the end of the year, if let's say Clemson's 8-4, let's say they lose 2 more times to those games you just mentioned, a win over an 8-4 team on their whole, that's a nice win. But will we retroactively go back and appreciate that win? Or is it, Clemson's not Clemson, so who cares?
It's that. Because they'll be 8-4. That's not who they are. That's not who they've been the last 10 years. They haven't been an 8-4 team, even when they've looked bad, quote unquote.
But if all their other wins, all their other losses on the road, and this is their only home loss, well, that's a little bit of a feather in the cap. Yeah. But also, I guess it's just the reactionary nature of these polls, and that Florida State was the best team in the country, or one of the best teams in the country 3 weeks ago. Then they struggle at Boston. Okay, they're not as good as we thought. Well, how'd Texas do? Well, Texas was in a 10-10 game in the fourth quarter at home against Wyoming. That's not held against them at all. They're still living off the win at Alabama. And they looked good this past Saturday against an outman team, a Baylor team. But they looked good. I get it. But they played 4 games. They struggled against Rice. They beat Bama. I thought they struggled against – I know they struggled against Wyoming. And then they looked good in their last game against Baylor.
But Baylor isn't great shakes, but I get it. Yeah.
But it's like that resume gets you to vault over Florida State, and then Ohio State winning at Notre Dame is better than the 2 good wins that Florida State has. And my point being, okay, let's say Ohio State loses to Michigan and Florida State loses at Florida. And Florida's 9-3. Or Florida State loses at home to Miami. Whatever. Ohio State and Florida State both finished with 1 loss. Who's getting picked for the playoff? That's where the concern comes in. Because that's just my biggest concern, is that these wins will be devalued because they're ACC wins, or they were too long ago, and that Clemson had a quote unquote down year. So big whoop, you beat Clemson on the road, even though nobody else does it. Big deal. You're supposed to do that. All right. It's almost like I even said this last week. If Florida State had lost to Clemson, then what's Clemson ranked right now? 16th.
Yeah,
probably 17.
Because they were 23rd, I think, in the coaches poll.
And they just beat a top 5 team at home and looked good doing it, pretty good doing it. Yeah. If that kid makes that field goal,
right? Because you slowed down this potent offense that LSU couldn't stop.
I think and then you beat Syracuse next week. Clemson's all of a sudden like 14th in the country again. Yeah. Well, heck, it's almost like if we're playing by SEC rules, that would have been better for Florida State. Like it makes Clemson look like a good loss, as opposed to a bad win, which right now, somehow we live in a world where winning at Clemson is a bad win. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being too sensitive, and it is just how it looked. But I'm tired. It's been a decade since we had to deal with this, Aslan. I'm tired of wins, close wins being taken for granted or devalued. Are you getting like if you're number 3 in the country and you win at Clemson, on no planet do you fall in the polls. In no planet does that happen. That should never happen. That's just a crazy world we now live in when it comes to college football. That's all. And I brought up the point that Duke was 41st in the country. If you count others receiving votes and track them all, there were 40 teams that had more votes in the preseason than Duke. They were 41st in the country in the AP poll. They beat Clemson at home and jumped to 21 in the country. So they jumped 20 spots on the strength of that win against Clemson. Yeah. Florida State beat that same Clemson team at Clemson and dropped. That just seems absurd. That's all. But understand, folks, I get it. Florida State, number 1, needs to play better on offense, clearly. Needs to find a rushing game, or none of this is going to matter anyway. But it's also late September. And it's a bye week. What else are we going to talk about, folks? Yeah. What else are we going to? We haven't even talked to anybody since the last time. No interviews since the last time you listened to us. So we got to talk about something. But, yeah, I just think that I get it. There's so much more room. There's so much more things to worry about. And this will take care of itself if you keep winning. My only concern, and I'm calling it now on September 26th, is if they lose a game, pay attention to how far they drop. And if any of the wins that are left on their schedule can push them back towards the top, where they have a legitimate chance of getting in the playoff. I still think, and what do you think, Aslan? Let's say they do go, they lose a regular season game, and then win let's say they lose, I was going to say Miami. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put that out in there. I'm not going to put that evil in the world.
Wake.
Let's say they lose at Wake. Okay. And then they beat Miami in the regular season.
By 2 scores.
And then they beat North Carolina in the championship game.
By 2 scores. Yeah.
Or I don't care if it's by a point.
I don't know, man. I think style points are going to matter.
If they're 12-1 ACC champs and beat Miami, North Carolina, at Clemson, at Florida, LSU, is that enough to get them in? Because I hear it in your voice. You probably think it's not. Probably not.
I wouldn't say that. I can just see so many different things happening. Maybe a 13-0 Georgia team loses to a 11-1 LSU team in the SEC championship game, right? Or Alabama runs the table and then beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, and it's a close game. You can't leave Georgia out. Meanwhile, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State are going to all beat up on each other, but whoever ends up winning the Big Ten is probably going to be looked upon as having a better team than whoever wins the ACC, in this case, obviously Florida State. And I don't know, man. Listen, I get it. Like, it's going to be a cool story for the Pac-12 to get somebody in the last year of the playoff maybe, but everyone's going to be gnashing their teeth about they don't play defense. Like Washington, Southern Cal, Utah, like they're all going to beat up on each other too. And I think, if you end up being that one-loss team, like if you're, say it's Southern Cal and they end up losing to Utah as they always do, but they play Oregon in the championship game. Oregon's only got 1 loss. I just think there's probably a better chance that Florida State ends up playing a 2-loss team in their championship game than any of those 1-loss teams. A 1-loss Michigan, 1-loss Ohio State plays a multiple-loss champion. Or actually, maybe Big Ten, I don't know, because the West is weak, so I take it back on that. But the SEC and the Pac-12 are probably going to be an undefeated team versus a 1-loss team, or a 1-loss team versus a 1-loss team, whereas the ACC is going to be maybe a 1-loss Florida State team against a multiple-loss opponent.
Yeah, and I guess it does matter who the loss is to and who you're beating and all that. I get it. I just we lived through this again, where Florida State, if they win narrowly, they get punished for it. No. And I'll be on. Let's see at the end of the year. What's more impressive, beating Clemson at Clemson or beating Notre Dame at Notre Dame?
Because that's what it is. Because, again, we don't want to belabor it, but, again, there's not a lot else to talk about. But the reason Florida State dropped is because Ohio State jumped. It's because Notre Dame did look really good in their first 3 games.
Can you look up Ohio State's other scores real quick?
Not great, other than last week agaagainst Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky you're talking about.
And
right?
Listen, and I get it. Notre Dame beat Tennessee State, but they dismantled Georgia Tech. Who else? They beat they hammered NC State in Carter Finley Stadium in sloppy conditions. Yeah. Ohio State beat Indiana 23-3, Youngstown State 35-7, 63-10 over Western Kentucky, and then had a 3-point win in Notre Dame I guess maybe it's the fashion, right?
I guess I would ask, why is the 3-point win over Notre Dame? Is it just because of the Duke game that Clemson lost to Duke? Like, is that why a 3-point win over Notre Dame?
It's reactionary to your point, Corey, right? Like it's a recency bias, and that was
I just think,
nationally
look
televised
at the
game.
totality of the resume after 4 weeks. And look, it's not all voters. Like, some people are still voting Florida State number 1. Some of them have number 1 or number 2. That's where I would have them right now, probably is 2. Maybe 3. I mean, I think it's fair to have them behind Georgia and Michigan because of what they brought in. And it's not like Georgia did struggle, but Aslan's right. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Unless you're 2014 Florida State, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt when you're the defending champs. So they were down 14-3 at home to South Carolina. That's by far a worse win than beating Clemson at Clemson. But they're Georgia, so nobody's going to vote them down. It's just that Florida State, it feels like let's start poking holes at it. And what do they have to do with Virginia Tech? Like, is there anything they can do to Virginia Tech to warrant moving up? No, somebody's now going to have to lose in front of them. There's no other. Maybe Miami. If Miami comes in 9-0 and you beat them, you could vault one of those teams ahead of you if they're all still undefeated. But I will say this: it doesn't matter right now because Penn State's undefeated, Washington's undefeated, USC's undefeated.
They're all going to play each other. Ohio State, Michigan, they're all going to play each other. But Georgia's not going to play anybody else.
No, they don't. Georgia has a ridiculous schedule. It's awful. It really is. They've played one Power 5 team. The only Power 5 team Georgia's played this season, they were down 14-3 at home at half. And they're playing Auburn, who is barely a Power 5 team this week. So they don't get – I don't know. You look at their schedule. At Tennessee is the closest thing they have to a real game all season. But, yeah, at the end of the day, though, Florida State has to play better. And if Florida State plays better, this should be a moot point. And I mean offensively. It should be a moot point. They are too good. They are so good that they can play a B- game, C+ game probably. I'd say it's a C game and win at Clemson. They weren't as bad. Like at Boston College, they were bad there late. I don't think they were ever bad against Clemson. Clemson could dictate some stuff, man. Those guys are NFL guys. Those linebackers are great. Their corners played really well, I thought, and that's an NFL defensive line.
Xavier Thomas kids. The Thomas kid's finally living up to his 5-star billing.
Tyler Davis is awesome.
Yeah,
like they got dudes. It's not an accident where they're ranked in these recruiting rankings. So it's not like it's hard to say Florida State played awful.
No,
because they
not
didn't.
At all. They did not. I agree with what you said. They played like their C game, which that's kind of exciting, but that's not.
Isn't that though?
Yeah.
Like again, I think we talked about it yesterday, but man, isn't that exciting to think about what it can be? Like once you talk about an exhale, like you just got through this first month 4-0, and I listened to Jeff's show, some of Jeff's show on Monday, Jeff Cameron, right here on Warchant TV, and he's right. It's like you can't get too upset about what you've seen the last 2 weeks because you're 4-0.
Yeah.
Also, just because you're 4-0 doesn't mean you can't look at what's happened the last 2 weeks and go, well, golly, if we could just clean that up, what would this thing look like? Yeah. And that's the truth, man. I just, if they can get to Duke at 6-0, if they're 6-0 playing Duke, and let's say Jordan Travis hasn't been hit in a month. The last hit he took was against Clemson. Yeah. And then, they can get by they get a bye week. They get Virginia Tech. Hopefully he doesn't have to run in that game. Maybe against Syracuse, they can establish a running game, figure that out, and he's not counted on to run. If all of a sudden he's like a fresh Jordan Travis and you're in game 7 and you're 6-0 without having a fully loaded, a fully realized Jordan Travis, man, you get real excited about what this season can be. Yeah. Like I know you guys already are, but think about what this offense can be if it had a running game. And think about what he can do when those plays, when you talk about him rolling to the right and just lobbing it up downfield to Johnny Wilson. They have a chance of being like a 10% chance of being completed. Imagine him just being able to take that, and instead of now you're facing 3rd and 10, he runs around right in for 11 yards or even 8 yards, and it's 3rd and 2. It just changes everything, and it's going to look so much better. It's going to look like it did the second half of last season.
Oh, the second half against LSU, which was not as
That
long
too.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can make people miss in space. He doesn't always have to run for yardage. He's not the kid from BC, but he can run and make plays with his legs, and that opens up everything. It is such a huge weapon. And I feel like they're just not operating at peak capacity, full capacity right now, because he can't run, or he will not run. He might be under orders not to run. And with that taken away from the offense, there's only a ceiling to what it can be. And you just happen to play one of the best defenses in the United States in their own stadium. So that's tough too.
What's not tough is facing the day with some vitamin energy in your system. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code WARCHANT BOGO, WARCHANT BOGO, buy one, get one free. Vitamin Energy, the first ever clinically tested, clinically proven energy shot on the market. 75% of folks who took one shot for 14 days, 75% said they're able to focus and concentrate better after taking a vitamin energy shot. 75% also the respondents after 14 days of taking one shot every single day said the effects of a vitamin energy shot last longer than coffee or other caffeinated drinks. It's science, everybody. Can you hear the paper rattling? These are documents in my hand. I'm reading them. They're real true things. Try it for yourself. Shake it and take it. Go to vitaminenergy.com. The folks over there that are FSU alums set you up with that cool promo code, WARCHANTBOGO, WARCHANT BOGO. Buy one, get one free. VitaminEnergy.com, promo code WARCHANTBOGO. Shake it and take it. I'm not excited about it, but we don't care about me. We care about you folks. A lot of people exhaled, Corey, when they saw the Virginia Tech game will be at 3:30. So no noon game for all you folks. You can get your lather on, enjoy the Noles taking on pretty not great Virginia Tech team these days. But whatever, just hammer them. Hammer them. Do what you should do and look good in doing it. Corey, do you know that through the first 4 weeks of the season, the ACC has 6 teams, 6 that are 4-0. That's the most among any conference in all the FBS. In fact, the 6 teams to start the season at 4-0 ties the SEC in 2012 for the most teams in a Power 5 conference to start 4-0 in a single season in the AP poll era.
Okay.
Maybe we shouldn't leave after all.
Yeah, man, this is a juggernaut. This conference is a juggernaut. I'm sure ESPN's about to rip up that contract right now and get everybody a new grant of rights to put them on par with the SEC and the Big Ten. So it's Miami, Syracuse, Duke, Florida State,
Louisville,
and North Carolina.
Correct.
So you play 3 of the 5 that aren't you. You play them down the stretch. And I'm telling you, man, there is a chance. Now, Miami has a tougher schedule anyway than Florida State would appear. But there's a chance they're on like a collision course. And think about this, Aslan. Say they are both 9-0. Well, if Florida State's 9-0 at that point, they'll probably be ranked 18th in the country, the way things are going. But let's say both teams are 9-0 and Florida State is 3 and Miami is 6.
Ooh.
Buddy, think about what that place will be on that night, what it'll feel like.
20 years. 20 years since the last time they both were in the top 10, right? The 2003 rain game.
No, I think they were both in the top 10 and 13. I mean, Miami was fraudulent that season, but I think they were undefeated when they came in.
10-year anniversary of that one, but I'll look it up.
That's right.
I'm an old fan.
And then that game was no contest. You knew that wasn't going to be a great game. But this one would feel different, I think. This would be much more evenly matched than that 13 team would be. But if Miami's undefeated, we don't know a whole lot about Miami quite yet. That win over Texas A&M is impressive. Let's see them stack. They haven't played anybody since, so let's see what they do against Carolina.
That game against Miami of Ohio is actually fairly.
Oh yeah,
you're
right.
They
you're right.
Them in the week one.
But they have Carolina and Clemson, right?
Miami.
Before they play Florida State.
That sounds about right. By the way, they were 7th in 2013. So
there you go.
Per usual, you were right.
But what I was saying is, if both teams are 9-0 or 10-0, wherever that falls, maybe that's 10-0. Maybe that'd be their. I think that'd be Florida State would be. No, they'd be 9-0. Anyway. If they're both undefeated going into that game, no matter what happens, they're probably playing again in Charlotte. Right?
Finally.
Or I guess you don't know. Louisville. Right. Louisville doesn't play a tough. They don't play Clemson, North Carolina, or Florida State. Yeah. They might play Miami.
They do, yeah. They play them the week after Florida State.
Oh, all right. So it could be Florida State and Louisville. Who knows? Or Louisville, however we're supposed to pronounce it. I forget. Louisville. Yeah, man, it's just that just looking ahead, if Florida State can take care of what it needs to take care of, and that's not just mean like go ahead and get these wins. I'm not dismissing them. I mean take care of like getting better. Like you're not listening to a podcast that's saying that Florida State is perfect, because we clearly aren't. They've got to be better about the way they start defensively, and they've got to be better about just offensively in general. They've got to throw the ball better. They've got to throw the ball to more people, and they've absolutely got to run the ball.
Yeah.
And if they could do that, but that's what I want to see. That you've got a month now. And again, I'm not counting any of these as automatic wins. Virginia Tech's the closest you got, but it's not an auto win. Those don't really exist anymore in college football. This is as close as you have the rest of the way, not counting North Alabama, but it's not an auto win. Syracuse and Duke aren't either. We're about to find out more about both of those, though. Like Duke has Notre Dame, Syracuse has Clemson. We'll see if both of those teams are still undefeated after this weekend. Well, batten down the hatches, folks, because it's going to be a crazy October. But yeah, they have a chance here over the next 4 weeks. They're not playing LSU. They're not playing they're not in a spiral against Boston College, and they're not playing in one of the toughest venues in the country against maybe the best defense in the country, or top 5. Go exert some will. How encouraging would it be, Aslan, if this October looked like last November?
Oh yeah, man.
When you go and you just hammer teams, which is this team is certainly capable
of. Exactly.
Yep,
We've seen
they are
it.
capable of it.
I certainly hope that is the case. Duke does have what if the ACC is actually all right this year, right? Like, what if Miami and and Duke? Listen, North Carolina's got maybe the number 2 overall pick on their team. That's the quarterback, and Drake May. What if Duke ends up being a 10-2, 9-3 team and fills the vacuum, if you will, of like Clemson being 10-2 last year, 9-3, and if Miami ends up being 10-2, which I don't know if they will, but they might be. This might be a better conference than the SEC this year. Ole Miss is not who they thought they were. Jackson Dart's clearly not it. Alabama's not looked all that great, and the East is down. Tennessee lost to Florida. I don't think that's the first time they're going to lose. I don't think Florida's going to run the table from here on out.
Florida's an underdog to Kentucky this weekend.
Oh, yeah. It's in it was a great soundbite. Did you hear the soundbite from Mark Stoops?
No.
He was asked about whether he's worried about it being a noon game and not getting the full fan experience from the folks in Big Blue Nation. And he's like, I have great confidence that the people of Kentucky can wake up early and pound some beers.
Oh, there you go, Mark.
Well
said, buddy. Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. Kentucky favored by 2.5 at home.
By the way, does that not seem – look, you know who I'm rooting for, folks. But if there's nothing that says free money, it's betting Florida against Kentucky. What Florida has done to Kentucky and Tennessee for 3 decades.
Well, I thought Kentucky actually the last 5-6 years. Since Mark
have
Stoops,
they? I know they beat them down there once. Did they beat them last year? They might have beaten them last year, right?
Yeah.
Richardson, I think. Okay, maybe they've done better against them than in recent memory, but still, Florida being an underdog at Kentucky with the history of that rivalry seems a little iffy to me. But yeah, look, man, I think you could make a case that the Pac-12. You could make a case. Nobody will buy it. But from top to bottom, depth-wise, the SEC could be 3rd or 4th. Like, the Pac-12 has some real, especially on offense. The Pac-12 is a cool, good conference.
Yeah.
You've got USC, Utah, Washington, Oregon State, Washington State.
Yep.
I know I'm leaving somebody else. Oregon.
Yep.
Come on, man. Those are good teams. Colorado, don't forget about them, guys. How could anybody? And then the Big Ten obviously has – I think the Big Ten is top-heavy. But those are 3 juggernauts at the top. Like, those are 3 good teams, I think. Yeah. And then the ACC, like you said, I think Florida State is the best. But, Carolina, Duke, Miami, they're sneaky. Maybe they're sneaky pretty good. The ACC is not better than the SEC. Now, as I say it out loud, that's not true. But it's not.
Maybe better quarterbacks.
Absolutely, they do. Who is the best quarterback in the SEC?
Jaden Daniels?
I guess, yeah. So who's number 2? The kid at Georgia who we don't know anything about yet? Milton?
Max Johnson, maybe.
Yeah. Good job, Jimbo. You got another quarterback on your hands there. Another quarterback controversy, probably.
By the way, Kentucky has won the last 2 against Florida and 3 of the last 5.
Oh, they do own the rivalry.
Yeah, man. Mark Stoops don't mess around, man.
So they went like 25 years in a row without beating them.
It was terrible.
And now they flipped it. Just like Florida State's just about to do to Clemson. You know, that's what we're in the midst of watching a turnaround, quite like Florida, Kentucky. But yeah, I think when you look at, that's what gets me so frustrated, I guess, about ranking a team high off a big win and then knocking them when they lose. It's like, man, look around the country. Like, wins are all that matter. Wins should be all that matters. Wins are what matters. If you can keep winning, you don't need to lose your spot in line, because it's hard to win. Like, it's just hard to win. Like, if you stay undefeated, you don't drop in the power rankings. You're doing what you can do, because it's so hard to win from week to week. And that goes for all these conferences. I have no idea how good Syracuse is. I know they're not a pushover. I know Duke isn't a pushover. Miami certainly seems to be very good. Like, I want you to get in any of these Power 5 conferences, and especially because you did beat LSU and you did win at Clemson, you shouldn't be penalized for then, say you only beat Syracuse 38-27. That's not a horrible win. That's a good win. Syracuse is a bowl team, capable guys, great coach, really fun-loving, that guy. Go watch his interviews, folks. He's something else, old Dino.
MyBookie.ag. You can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, and use the promo code WARCHANT for an instant cash deposit bonus. As we mentioned, Florida giving 2.5 out to the Wildcats of Kentucky at home.
They're getting 2, aren't they?
No, Kentucky's favored by 2.5.
That's what I'm saying. So they're not giving away the points.
No, they're getting
the points.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe you should do the read sometime, Corey.
Sorry, my fault.
Texas giving out 17 against Kansas. Texas, come on. Kansas plays them close. Maybe that'll be a real indicator of whether or not they're back. What about Nebraska? Do you think they keep it close against Michigan? They're getting 18 at home in Lincoln.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good bet. Nebraska's got a good defense, man. And if you've got a good defense and Michigan struggles and it's only like, let's say 14-7 at half or 14-6, maybe things can get goofy in the second half and Nebraska could keep it close and maybe pull up the big upset. I'd be very surprised if that happened, but I think they can stay within. When they have a defense like that, as long as they don't give up because the offense is so bad, they have a chance. And they're not playing Jeff Sims anymore. So that helps. Yeah, that's worth 10 points right there.
How about Duke getting 6 at home against Notre Dame, coming off that heartbreaker?
Man, it just seems like a game that Duke will find a way to like maybe be exposed. But I don't know if Notre Dame's the team that can do it. I don't think their offense is all. I mean, Sam Hartman, if anybody's not going to be overwhelmed by being at Wallace Wade Stadium, it's Sam Hartman. He's been there before. So he's telling all his teammates what it's like to be there and what a raucous atmosphere that is. But I would say I like Duke getting 6 at home.
So do I.
Especially Notre Dame coming off that agonizing loss, like you said.
And last one, going probably way too long on the read here. This is just disgusting, but let's do it. Michigan State, Iowa, in Iowa City, the total points, 36.5.
Under. Under. 27-0.
Come on, Harlan.
Iowa will block 2 punts or something.
Come on, Harlan. MyBookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. And use that promo code WARCHANT for your instant cash deposit bonus. All right, Corey. This Florida State running defense was showcased. It's been showcased in front of everybody that's watched this team. But, Ira did a really good job of really accentuating just how crucial it's been to the success of this team through the first month of the season. Seemingly game plans go out the window maybe when teams play against Florida State, or are they coming into these games knowing already what is on film? Jeff Hafley said going into the game that like Florida State's one of those teams where you don't want to watch the film more than once because you kind of get scared, you get depressed knowing what you're going to have to go against. I don't want to throw the word special around or whatnot, but just has it been a surprise to you? I know that was the one part of that defense, statistically, obviously. Listen, I know people did not think the defense was great last year, but statistically they were. I mean, they were in the mid-20s. But that run defense, I think, was in the 70s. Has it been surprising to you so far that they've been able to, listen, they hemmed up Maffa and Shipley, other than I think maybe one run apiece for those guys. Boston College, it was the quarterback that did all the damage. LSU's vaunted offensive line couldn't do much against Florida State either. How much of a surprise, or has it been kind of par for the course for your expectations going to the season?
No, it's exactly how I thought it would play out. Maybe I didn't know they'd be quite this stout, especially once they lost Darrell Jackson. But no, man, they are. I thought they'd be good, and they have been. Again, you can look at the numbers don't necessarily do it justice because Jaden Daniels and Cassianos are such unique quarterbacks. And Southern Miss got a bunch of cheap yards against third stringers in the second half. But when Southern Miss had its offense in the game, they didn't even try to run the ball. Yeah. And when they did, there was nowhere to go. Clemson, like we said, if you take away the one run, which you can't, but if you take away the one run, I think those guys combined for like 80 yards on 30 carries or 27 carries. Like they averaged less than 3 yards per rush except for one run. That's a big run. But then they fumbled 2 plays later. And you know what happened after that, Aslan, that we didn't talk about? So what's my man's name? Shipley's backup?
Phil Maffa.
Maffa, very good. From Grayson, Gwinnett County.
Oh, stand up.
Yeah. So Maffa, after that 45-yard run, when you felt like the game was on the precipice of maybe getting away, the very next play, they give it to him again. He goes left, and Burst slams him down like a child. Like Burst comes off a block, picks him up, and slams him to the ground. He gets 0 yards. And it was like, okay, yeah, remember, you can't run on us. That was a statement play. And then the very next play, because they realized, okay, it's 2nd and 10, we can't try running again. Deloach changes the game on the blitz. When you know going into games that other teams can't run by traditional means, I would say, I don't know, I haven't looked at the numbers. Florida State has to be in the top 5 or 10 in the country in run defense when it comes to running backs. I don't know what the total yardage they've given up to running backs this year. I'm going to guess 200 total. And I bet 80 came on 2 runs. The 35-yarder at the end of the half on a draw that they were not coached up well there. They just didn't have any situational awareness. And the 45-yarder against Clemson. Other than that, I think their longest run is like a 15-yarder. And another play I wanted to bring up, Aslan. So the end of the half, the end of the third quarter, after Deloach ties the game, Shipley has his only kind of decent run of the game, which was like a 16-yarder where he ran over Renardo Green. Just trucked him. And that was the last play of the third quarter. Well, the first play of the fourth quarter is another give to Shipley, and guess who makes a tackle in the backfield? Renardo Green. Like, I just love that response from this team. And that was one thing that Jeff and I were talked about on his show that I think we do need to appreciate. It is a really tough football team, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is physically tough. They don't block well right now. They got to figure out what they're doing in the offensive line. Do they have the right people playing? Are they calling it the right way? They got 2 weeks to kind of figure out what they are as an offense and make changes and tinker if they need to. But they are physical, defensively up front, they are stout. And they are so tough mentally, man. That is a mentally tough team. You're down 10-0 on the road. Nothing is going well. And then Trey Benson makes a great back shoulder catch that gets the offense going. Obviously, Johnny and Keon did their thing. Jaheim made some plays. Jordan was Jordan for some stretches of that game. It's really cool to know that you don't have a team that's going to completely pee down its leg. They live for adversity. And I don't know if you watched the cinematic recap, which those things are great, by the way, folks. Go watch those about the Clemson game. But that's what Norvell told them. It's like, y'all embrace the adversity. He goes, I told you there was adversity coming. And y'all handle it like you always do because you embrace it. You want it. And they just do a really good job with it, man. It's a mentally tough team that, yeah, it's not perfect. Nobody is. But
not this year.
You have this mindset, right? You have a team that I think is very mentally tough. You have a defense that just completely shuts down running games. And you have an offense that has not come close to clicking over the course of a 4-game stretch so far, and you're 4-0. I mean, you have a chance to be really special this year. Probably better than I thought you were going to be, which is weird because we wouldn't say they played great the last 2 weeks. But these last 2 weeks have almost given me more what's the word I'm looking for? Not determination, but more confidence that this team is better than I thought it was. I would have thought if they're going to win at Clemson, they would have to play at least a B game, maybe an A game. And if they're going to be 4-0, they will have had to have been played almost at their ceiling.
Or have a bunch of luck go their way, maybe.
They haven't.
No.
They haven't. They haven't created a ton of turnovers. Now the one they created was a big one. And the one they had in Boston College was a big one. But they haven't had great turnover luck as far as creating a lot of them or recovering fumbles or anything. Injury luck, they lost 2 starting offensive linemen. They lost the safety that apparently is more valuable than we could have ever predicted. And yet they're 4-0. Their quarterback is banged up. And I get kind of giddy thinking about if this team is operating near its ceiling. That it literally, I'm more confident now than I was in August 20th. That when this team plays well, it might be the best team in the United States. And I am absolutely positive if it plays well, it can beat anybody in the country.
This year, absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
that's what I mean. This year.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
Yep.
I like how you brought up the cinematic recap. I did not watch. I've never watched them because it'll make me jealous that I don't have that access and I can't film because I'd be like, I could do better than this.
Oh, man. Come on, buddy.
But I did see he said that he's like, I know it's not going to be pretty. Or maybe he didn't say, I know it's not going to be pretty. It might not be pretty, but I know the team I coach. I know who I ride with.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was trying to talk about yesterday on the show that, listen, as awesome as they look in that second half against LSU, that clearly resides in them. We saw that the entire preseason. That's why we felt so confident going to the LSU game. It's why I went onto all these LSU podcasts, and I was like, yeah, I don't care about Harold Perkins or anybody. They're just better than you guys, and they're going to show it, and they did. But maybe they just, not that they have to stub their foot like 2014 and dig themselves in holes, but maybe they're going to get everybody's best shot. They're going to be in pretty much dogfights every single week because maybe this schedule isn't as soft as we thought. Maybe this conference is better than we imagined. But ultimately, you found yourself with your back against the wall, and you could have easily lost the Boston College game. And I know it's Boston College, but you found a way to pull that game out and win, and not just the penalty on the face mask, but creating negative plays on that final drive. Going into Clemson, whatever, man. They missed the field goal. You could have gone there and ended it in regulation. You did not, but you got the ball first in overtime. You might have played tight. You could have possibly played tight, but it worked out perfect. You hooked up with your receiver that was kind of playing up and down a little bit the last few weeks. And then your defense went out there and got a big stop. So this might just be a team that, as Norvell says, like built to win these close games. And this season, across college football, where there is no dominant, runaway, clear number one team, you want to be the team that can find a way to grit out wins. And
it's a team. It's a team that maybe isn't, certainly the last 2 weeks has not been dominant from start to finish, but it has stretches of utter dominance. That's what it's shown me, is that LSU, you had the 38-3 run. Obviously, Southern Miss, you beat them by 100. Boston College, as ugly as that thing was, you had a 28-0 run in that game, right?
Pardon?
Yeah, right? They were down 10-3, and then they were up 31-10. 28-0. That's crazy that it came that close. Get your stuff together. How are you going to get – anyway, so you had a 28-0 run in that game, and then in that Clemson game, at Clemson, you finished off with a 24-7 run. Their last touchdown was benefited greatly from a face mask on Fabian Lovett. They had a touchdown that I don't think Tatum Bethune – I know he held, but it was also – that stuff happens all the time. I didn't think you got a great whistle against Clemson.
No.
Every single touchdown they had benefited some way or another from a penalty on you guys, including Braden Fisk running back into the game after his helmet had come off, which is weird. Don't do that anymore. But you gave them some yardage. Plus they made plays, but you still, at their place, after getting down 17-7 in Death Valley, a place you haven't won in a decade and only won once in 22 years, you finished that game on a 24-7 run. That's there, man. That's what's so cool about it. Now, start the game on a 24-7 run, finish it on a 24-7 run, and quit giving everybody heart attacks. You do what you know what I mean? Like go dominate from start to finish against a real team and not Southern Miss. That's my next step that I want to see. I don't think it's necessarily in this team's DNA that they're gonna be in these dogfights. I feel like I don't know if you could say 2 weeks in a row is an anomaly. I think let me put it this way. The Boston College game I think was an anomaly. The Clemson game was just another good team that was a tough game. It felt like an NFL game. Like came down to the last possession.
Yeah, but what if Duke and Miami are that though? You know.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. But I think if they're clearly superior to a team, which they might be, they absolutely are against Virginia Tech.
Yes.
They absolutely are, I think, against Pitt. They should be against Wake, but we'll see. Yeah. I think there's still a chance this team is a team that that goes on, that's up 42-13 in the third quarter. Like I absolutely think that's in this team. I think they're just going to get better and better on offense. It's almost like they survived the first month. Now they can reset and figure out what they are offensively, what they have to do to improve that. Again, they had been great until Jordan got hurt. And then they have not been great since then. But they were great until Jordan got hurt. But I do think they need to figure out, okay, why can't we run the ball? And if we're going to struggle running it all year, do we need to change our identity and throw it 75% of the time? Which they might. But, then you're also opening up your quarterback to more hits. So we'll see how it goes. But, man, 4-0 still don't really truly have an identity kind of on either side of the ball. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the defense has been great.
Well, they shut you down the run. They make you one-dimensional.
They do that, yeah. But you'd like them to be a little more, not a lot better in pass defense. That's something they get to clean up and correct. And the offense has not been great, certainly by its standards. And yet here you are 4-0 with 3 straight home games coming up. That is in a bye. I mean, it's a really good place to be. And there is a chance we're going to look back on this 2-game stretch as the anomaly when it comes to Florida State struggling, quote unquote, on offense. Yeah. They might be ready to put it together. And think about it, Aslan. Last year, it took them till game 8? Till the Georgia Tech game?
Yeah.
That's when they started. They went, what'd they have? They had
after that 3-game losing streak, yeah.
Yeah, but they had 20 points against Wake Forest at home, 7 in the first half in that game. They scored, 16 the whole game against NC State, none in the second half. And then Clemson, they had 14 points with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And then after that game, bombed Georgia Tech, bombed Miami, bombed Syracuse, bombed Louisiana, bombed Florida's defense, and scored 35 against Oklahoma. So they figured it out.
They're a second-half team.
And maybe they're, second half of the season team.
Yeah.
Now, they were horrible last October. Let's avoid the October doldrums. And then don't you just trust Norvell and Atkins to figure this out?
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's a good point you brought up. I think they might realize that the offensive line with, some of the compromised guys they have, they might need to start shuffling some guys around because they certainly have enough film now, right, to see weaknesses and they've shuffled guys in and out to kind of maybe figure out what the best 5 are.
Well, we'll see.
They're going to trust 8. I get they're going to trust 8 or whatever, but they might end up wanting a different 5 and a different augmentation of it.
And maybe Byers clearly struggled in that game against Clemson. There's no doubt about it. That is a tough matchup for him. Didn't see a lot of those guys when he was blocking at UTEP. But I still think he has a spot on this team. And if Robert Scott can get healthy, and then you move Bless Harris to right tackle, do you move Byers to guard? Is that even an option? But the thing is, you have options.
Yeah.
And they are not going to just. There's no way that Alex Atkins and Mike Norvell, I guess that's the overarching point. There's no way that they're looking at what they've done and watching this film and looking at the offensive numbers and being like, you know what?
We're good.
4-0, baby.
Yeah, right.
We have arrived. We're 4-0. Don't care how it's done. Yeah. We're 4-0. Suck on that, ACC. Suck on that, everybody. Hey, go read me some columns for 2020 again. Yeah. I want to reminisce. They're not doing that. They are trying to figure it out because they're not close to being satisfied. They are not happy. They are probably, quite honestly, Aslan, Atkins, I'm sure, is embarrassed by the running game or lack thereof. That's an awesome place to be when you are 4-0 and have a little bit of embarrassment about the way you're playing. Buddy, that is awesome. I just want to see Destin Hill catch some more passes. That's all. That's all I'm asking for. On
the way out, shout out Kalen DeLoach, ACC linebacker of the week. 7 tackles, 2 sacks, forced fumble, and obviously 56-yard touchdown on that scoop and score. Co-defensive back players of the week. One from Georgia Tech, but Renardo Green's the one that we care about. Renardo 7 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 PBU. The TFL was on that 3rd and 1 in overtime. So
Which is nonsense, because if you watch the game I was just talking about, or the play I was just talking about after Shipley ran him over, the first play after that is a tackle for loss. My man had 2 TFLs.
okay.
I think Jared Burse had 2 TFLs too, and he didn't get credit for it. I don't know how they're doing their stats.
I think he only got like half, actually.
Yeah, which doesn't make any sense. He had 2, but whatever.
And I don't know.
But congrats to Bernardo Green.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzgerald should have been the specialist, or maybe Mastromano, but they gave it to a punt returner from North Carolina. So
well, he did have a touchdown.
Yeah. I mentioned to bring this up on yesterday's show. I really did. I had it in front of my screen, but for some reason did not make mention of it. But shout out to the women's soccer team.
Yeah, me too, man. Thank you.
Or the soccer team. We only have one of them around here. But they went up to Chapel Hill, played, I think, the number 1 team in the country, North Carolina. Yep. And Mimi Van Zanten tied it up in the 90th minute, if I'm not mistaken.
The 90th minute, the last second, literally.
Yeah.
When the ball hits the net, there's 1 second on the scoreboard.
Oh, I forgot. That's right. They have like an actual. They don't have the ref with the unknown.
No, it's not you're waiting for
international
the 3 whistles.
soccer. Yeah.
No, they actually had the clock going on the scoreboard. Yeah. There was 1 second left, and it was crazy. Like Florida State was up 2-1. Dudley, I think, is her last name. She's a freshman. She's incredible.
Jordan Dudley.
Jordan Dudley. You go. She scored the first 2 goals for Florida State. They're up 2-1 with like 25 minutes remaining. They give up the game-tying goal, and then with like 5 minutes remaining, they give up the go-ahead goal. And you're like, and they were both kind of breakdowns. It's fine. But it's like, oh, man, you just let that one get away. And then they literally scored with 1 second left to tie the game. Unbelievable. I've never seen that before in soccer.
Yeah. Buzzer beaters can happen, apparently.
Exactly so. And exactly right. So, yeah, man, that's a great – I was going to say a great win, but that's a great tie for that program. And they were down one of their best – I think they were down a couple of their best players. They were playing internationally somewhere. So they only had 16 girls on the roster, 16 women on the roster, and Carolina had like 30. And so they were clearly tired, very, very spent and tired at the end of the game. But you know what? Still got that goal. How would you like being a keeper that gives up a goal with a second left?
Not great. Not great feeling.
Hope that hurts, Carolina goalkeeper. Hope it hurts.
Also, Mimi's a true freshman, the one that netted the game-tying goal. So, future's bright for every sports team in Florida State. Follow Ira on Twitter. My guy's out there tweeting On3 basketball recruiting updates too. So, Ham's out there cooking, we think.
He's got some 5 stars that he's in the final 3 and 5 with. Bring a couple of those home, Leonard. Let's go.
Yeah. All right, we'll probably take tomorrow off if you guys don't mind.
And it's not Aslan's fault. I've got tickets to the Braves game. Going to go see, hopefully, NL MVP Ronald Acuna one last time before the playoffs start. So, and you can listen to me on headlines, and then we'll be back. And it's plus an off week. It's a bye week. Yeah. Give us a break, guys.
Yeah. We'll do a Renegade Express and then maybe a live show on Thursday, or maybe we'll break up the Renegade Express into 2 shows for you folks. But we'll have shows for you folks on Thursday and Friday. Man, I want the Braves to do well for you. I'd like to see the O's do good for Ira, but man, I hope the Braves win it just so Acuna can, I don't know how it works in baseball, legacies and things like that. But the fact that he was not part of the team that won the World Series, really hope he's able to add that to his resume, because apparently he's phenomenal.
Well, he's the best. He's the best Atlanta Braves player that's ever lived. Obviously, Henry Aaron played for the Atlanta Braves, but he did for his first half of his career was in Milwaukee. Yeah. But they've never had a player like this. This is unbelievable. And it's crazy. I know you people don't listen to this show for this, but there's apparently there's not a controversy, but there's a real discussion about if Acuna or Mookie Betts should be the MVP. Acuna leads major leagues in hits, runs. He's the first player ever with a 40-60 season. He's got 40 homers and 68 stolen bases. He has 15 or 16 more runs than anybody else in the league. He leads in OPS. I mean, he just leads in everything that matters. But Mookie Betts plays second base sometimes. So Mookie Betts is awesome, by the way. I'm not trying to. That's the problem, is you start dismissing people. Yeah. And what he does defensively is ridiculous. He's an incredible outfielder, and he also plays second base at a major league level, which just isn't. I don't think Acuna could do that. But I also don't think Mookie Betts could have a 40-70 season. No. Which Acuna, I hope I see it tonight. Hope I see him steal 2 bases tonight and be the first 40. He's already the first 40-68 player in history. Be the first 40-70 player in history. But yeah, he's incredible, man. He's incredible. Like him to run out a few more ground balls, But what are you going to do, man? He plays really hard. He runs when he has to. God love him.
Rules changes. You approve of everything? Has it gone well?
Been awesome.
Okay.
It's been awesome.
All right.
I love it. I love everything about it. It's been a really cool. It's just been a cool change. I think they said that last year the games were 3 hours and 5 minutes. This year they're 2:42 or something like that.
Sign me up. I love that.
So they've saved 25 minutes. The bases are a little bit bigger, so there's more stealing. There's more action. I love that you have to pitch to at least 3 batters. I love the pitch clock. Everything they've done. Got rid of the shift. Everything they've done has really helped baseball and improved the sport, in my opinion.
Maybe the NCAA can learn how to shorten games and not ruin the spirit of the sport. I don't.
Yeah, maybe can you not do what they do in World Cup and just, if you need to get a commercial in, play it while the game is going on first down.
Yeah,
like during the change of possession,
split screen or something.
and as the first play is going on, do that. I mean, half the time you're talking to a mom or a dad in the crowd anyway. So instead of doing that, play a commercial.
Quinn Kessnick's got a story for us down on the field, Corey. Let's go down to Quinn.
Somebody's got to tell us how hard Dion's working for the next minute and a half. So instead of doing that, play a commercial as the game's going on. They do that in golf too. And then let us keep the rules that we've had, the clock rules, because I don't like that these games are 12 plays less than they were last year.
And lastly, shout out to Dane and Cole and several other people that were so nice and sitting along the rail at Clemson. And every time I'd go back and forth, they'd yell Warchant at me or that they love the show. I forgot to shout them out. So I don't know if they're listening to the Tuesday show 1 hour into it, but I remember.
Not. Did you go do a Lambeau leap or anything with them when they won?
No, I should have started helping people go down, but I did the whole. Did you see the video I shot where I just walked around point of view video? I just walked around the entire field and just didn't say a word and just let the scene tell itself.
Is that on our Warchant YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's 3.5 minutes of me walking around. Go check it out.
You should have advertised that yesterday.
12,000 people have watched it. 35,000 people watched Norvell's post game.
I'm saying if you'd have advertised the POV from on the field after the game, it'd be 50,000 that have watched that, Aslan. Yeah. So, folks, go watch that. I'm about to as soon as we get done yammering right here.
Yeah. Seminole headlines. No hour number 2 from Corey because he's remote.
Yeah.
Next week, though.
Next week, I promise.
1 to 3 o'clock, Seminole Headlines, 93.3 FM, as well as Warchant TV, warchant.com. Plenty of content going up, even though it is an off week, so stay connected. Thumbs up on the way out, please, if you don't mind. I think we might have earned it. 5-star rating interview as well. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.